The Phantom Broadcast. I've been a radio host for over a decade now, and I thought I'd seen and heard it all. The midnight shift at our small-town station was usually uneventful, a few regular callers and some background music to fill the time. But what happened that night? Nothing could have prepared me for it. My name's Tom Weaver, and if you're listening to this, you might not believe me. Hell, I'm still struggling to believe it myself. It was a quiet Wednesday night, the kind where the only calls I expected were from truckers on the road and insomniacs wanting to chat. The clock on the studio wall read 1:27 a.m., and I was about to play another set of oldies when the phone line blinked. It was the private line, one reserved for emergencies or important messages from the station manager. "Tom Weaver here. Who's calling?" I said, expecting some static on the other end or maybe even a prank. But instead I heard a woman's voice, trembling and barely audible. Please, help me," she whispered, her words punctuated by what sounded like deep breaths, almost gasps. My heart skipped a beat. "Ma'am, what's wrong? Are you in danger?" She took a moment to respond, her voice quivering. I'm trapped in my house. It's on fire. I can't find the way out. The smoke, it's everywhere. Please help me." I glanced at the clock again. 1:28 a.m. My mind raced. This wasn't some ordinary call. I could almost hear the flames crackling through the phone, and the terror in her voice was too real, too raw to be a prank. "Stay calm, ma'am," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Where are you? I'll get the authorities to your location right now." "Elm Street, number 15, she choked out, and then the line went dead. I sprang into action, calling 911 and reporting the fire at the given address. The dispatcher took the details and assured me that units were on their way. I hung up, but a sense of unease settled over me. Something didn't feel right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Trying to shake off the weird feeling, I went back on air. I didn't mention the call, just played the next song and tried to calm my nerves. But 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. This time the line was even more distorted, the voice on the other end barely recognizable. "It's coming for me," the voice rasped, and I realized with a shock that it was the same woman. I can't escape it. The fire, it's gone, but now there's something else. It's in the shadows. "Ma'am?" I stammered, dread creeping into my voice. "The fire department should be there any minute." "What do you mean it's coming for you? What's coming?" Her breathing grew frantic, and I could hear something else in the background, a low, guttural sound, like a growl or a distant rumble. "It's in the shadows," she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. "It's inside my house. I can see its eyes. Oh God, they're everywhere. Please make it stop, please." Then, once again, the line went dead. My hands were shaking as I dialed 911 again, but this time, the dispatcher told me something that made my blood run cold. "Sir, we responded to that call, but there was no fire. There's no one at that address, Tom. The house is empty. It's been abandoned for years." I could hardly process what she said. I had just spoken to someone terrified, out of their mind. There had to be a mistake. "Are you sure?" "She was so real," I began, but the dispatcher cut me off. "I'm certain. We checked the entire house. It's empty and cold. No sign of any recent activity. Are you okay, Tom? Do you need to step away for a bit?" I mumbled something about being fine and hung up, my mind racing. I knew what I'd heard. I knew the fear in that woman's voice was real. But if there was no one at the house, who had I spoken to? Just as I was about to pull myself together, the phone rang again, but this time it was from another line. Hesitant, I answered. Tom. Weaver. Right. A man's voice asked, sounding as though he was out of breath. I'm calling from Highway 16. My car broke down, and there's something out here with me. I can see its eyes in the trees. They're glowing, and it's getting closer. My heart pounded in my chest. Where are you exactly? I asked, already preparing to call the authorities again. Near mile marker 23. He gasped. But it's too late. It's coming. It's... The line cut off abruptly. I stared at the receiver in my hand, dread settling in the pit of my stomach. What the hell was happening? 2 back-to-back calls, both filled with terror and impossible situations. This couldn't be real. But it was too vivid, too intense to be anything else. I called the highway patrol, giving them the location. They promised to send someone out, but as I hung up, I felt a cold sweat trickle down my spine. I was certain that if they reached that spot, they'd find nothing. Just like the first call. The rest of the night passed in a haze. I couldn't focus, couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Every creak in the studio, every flicker of the lights, felt like a prelude to something sinister. The phone remained silent, but I couldn't relax. I kept expecting it to ring, to hear another voice pleading for help that I couldn't give. The next morning, I didn't bother waiting for my shift to end. I grabbed my things and left the station, my mind swirling with the events of the night. But as I walked out the door, my phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline made my blood run cold. Unexplained deaths on Highway 16 and Elm Street investigated. No signs of fire or car accident found. The article described a woman found dead in her home on Elm Street, her body untouched by fire, but with burn marks all over her skin. On Highway 16, a man was found in his car, his eyes wide open in terror, with no visible injuries and no sign of any other presence around. Both incidents were reported around 1:30 a.m. I don't know what's happening, but I'm starting to fear that I'm not just a radio host anymore. I think I'm the messenger of something far darker than I can understand, something that lingers in the spaces between our world and somewhere else. And I'm afraid that the next time the phone rings, it won't just be a call. It'll be a warning, and the warning will be for me.